the presidents of the two biggest economies in the world right here in Big Tech's backyard, and everybody has questions about AI. How much do you think AI is going to drive economic growth in the Asia-Pacific region and really the world, let's say, over the next decade?
It's a big question. It's a good warmer, I think. Look, obviously, rightfully, I think the excitement around AI is well-founded. I'm glad it's a big topic. Let me start with the Asia-Pacific question. One of the things that excites me is if you're in a region, unlike the past technologies, take the PC revolution, you have to in some ways play catch-up. Mobile was the first transition, I think, in Asia. You almost co-developed it. I look at Android, it wouldn't have happened without all the work we did in Asia, our partners in Asia, be it Samsung or HTC in Taiwan and so on. But I think you started leapfrogging, and you don't need to play catch-up with legacy. I think AI takes it the next step further. I think it's the first technology. I think you're all in a real position to be right there from the start and have a seat as this technology develops. So I think that has profound implications. You all can be as AI native as what's happening in the US and so on. So I think in that way, it's going to have a big impact. I think the way you do that, though, is by, as APEC countries, I would say you have to have a pro-innovation mindset. You have to embrace it at the start. Make sure you have the right infrastructure in the country to facilitate AI innovation. You're thinking about the right balanced regulation, both from an innovation and safety standpoint. And then as government, maybe lead the way. What are the projects you can visibly do? How do you use AI to digitize services and serve your citizens better? I think if you lead the way and then invest in skilling, et cetera, I think there's a real chance. So I think it couldn't be more exciting.
India, your native country, is now the most populous country in the world. Do you see AI as a massive opportunity for India, or could it lead to a massive dislocation given the number of lower-level coding, customer services jobs based there?
I do think it's going to be a massive opportunity, across. India has to make progress on many, many fundamental areas, right? Be it healthcare, agriculture, food security, climate change, and so on. So, and AI is going to help us make progress. So it is a big opportunity. I think even on the labor market, a few things I would say. There's a study from MIT economist David Order that if you look at today, a vast majority of jobs that exist today are in new specialties or categories that have come about since 1940. So in some ways, this can be counterintuitive. Over the last 20 years, we've all worried about automation, and it hasn't quite played out the way we have predicted it. Having said that, I think your question is important. I think for many jobs, it also has an opportunity to play it out in a much better way, right? Make the jobs easier to do. Like, if you can imagine, how do you have radiologists to cover India's breadth of population? AI can actually help expand access. But finally, there are a category of jobs where there will be a shift. And I think that's where the only way to make progress, no one can do it alone. You have to invest in the hard work of skilling and workforce transition. That's true for India, that's true for every country in the world, I think.
You've met with President Biden on AI in Washington, Prime Minister Sunak on AI in London. How do we get to global consensus on smart AI regulation?
It's not going to be easy, but I would start from this premise that AI will proliferate. So this is not the inherent nature of software. AI advances will get out to all countries. And so it is naturally the kind of technology, I don't think there's any unilateral safety to be had. We all have a shared incentive to solve for safety. You could have AI go wrong in one country that will impact every other country. So in some ways, it's like climate change in the planet. We all share a planet. I think that's true for AI. So now that you know that will be true, I think you have to start building the frameworks globally to make progress. I've seen encouraging progress when the G7 happened in Hiroshima. I think it was a good start. You've seen more progress. The UK AI Summit last week, the administration here, the White House has been leading the way as well. And I saw good, encouraging announcements even yesterday for US and China to start having a dialogue on AI.
Well, that was my next question. Should Chinese regulators be part of this conversation on AI regulation?
My sense is there is no way you make progress over the long term without China and the US deeply talking to each other on something like AI. So I think that has got to be an integral part of how you make progress. So I think I'm glad to see it. And we have to lay the foundations. The good thing is we are still in early days of the technology. So laying the foundations now will allow us to work through the tough issues and build a common framework over time.
Google and other big tech companies have been criticized for pushing self-serving regulation and pulling up the ladder behind them in a way that will stifle AI innovation among startups. How do you respond to that?
Quite the opposite. Pretty much on most areas we have worked on, we have deeply supported open innovation. If you look at things like Android or Chrome, these are all big open source projects. Most of the current AI revolution is based on work which we have published as a company and shared with the world. And I think as we move ahead, open source is going to play a critical role in driving AI innovation forward. And I think we have to be careful not to do regulation in a way that either harms open source technologies or smaller companies. So I actually think we care about that. Having said that, I think we are also being asked to contribute for how would you tackle AI safety, right? And so we have to think through issues like that. I don't see this as being at odds with each other. For example, next year about 2.5 billion people around the world would participate in an election.
Right. The biggest election in history is going to be happening in India.
Yeah, that's right. And many more countries around the world, including the US. Mm-hmm. So maybe almost 1 in 3 people in the world may participate in an electoral process next year. So how do you think about, generative AI, causing misinformation there? These are real problems. So we are thinking through areas like that, but I think that is not that shouldn't hinder innovation because of the opportunity we talked about earlier. So we think about this framework as being bold and responsible at the same time. And I think it's important to do both, and I think that's true for governments as well.
We've already seen, as it pertains to India, 3D generated holograms of Prime Minister Modi, AI generated voice and songs. How do you think AI, and obviously the US presidential election coming up as well, how do you think AI is going to further test election integrity?
I think over time, it's going to lower the barrier for creating, artificial information, which may or may not mirror what's happening in the real world, right? And that barrier will come down. Mm-hmm. So in this cat and mouse game, how do we amp up our defenses against that? We are in early stages, right? We were one of the first companies to announce a watermarking technology for image generation. It's called SynthID, done by DeepMind, and we are providing API access to it. But all of us need to tackle it. These are areas where regulation will have to play a role, right? I think governments will have to, over time, pass regulations about what is okay for, some of this synthetic content. And so which is why I think you have to think about it, together.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has said repeatedly he wants to know more about what's happening with AI in China. What do you know and what do you not know about where China is on AI?
Look, I think they're making, from what I can tell, they're making deep investments in AI. The scale of AI research talent in China is just simply astounding to see. So I think, in some ways, this question, China is going to be at the forefront of AI, and I think that's a given. And so the question is, how do we work over time, both for other countries to make sure you're making progress in AI, and over time, how do we develop the frameworks where countries can coexist peacefully in a world in which AI will be everywhere.
President Biden actually just said he doesn't see the U.S. decoupling with China, but the world does seem to be on a path to two separate internets. Do we continue in that direction, and what does that mean?
It's tough to say. Things go through in phases. I think we are definitely in a phase where there are more forces pulling it apart. But inherently, these technologies also facilitate easy exchange of information. So I think there are countervailing forces as well. So I think it's tough to predict. I do think information wants to flow freely by nature. So my hope is over time, things do couple back again.
Could AI or cloud, some of these newer businesses that Google has been building, could that be a path back into China for Google?
Today our presence in China is limited, and we are definitely focused on. We deeply partner with governments around the world. In fact, one of the big opportunities we have with cloud and AI is many governments are working, and they are thinking about how to incorporate AI to transform their services to their citizens, improve their infrastructure, et cetera. So it's an area where we really focus on, but not necessarily vis-a-vis China.
Now, the conversation around AI is super polarized. Either we're headed toward human extinction and the robocalypse, or we're all going to have superpowers. Which one is it?
I'm optimistic, right? I think as humanity, we have harnessed every technology to our benefits. And more than any other technology, I've seen us be worried about it at its earliest stages. So in some ways, that gives me hope. I do think we have to be very optimistic because it can really, drive progress, at a fundamental level, be it scientific discovery, like we are seeing with AlphaFold at Google. So I think there's a lot of optimism to be had. But I think we have to work hard to harness it. But that is true of every other technological advance we've had before. It was true of the Industrial Revolution. And I think we can learn from those things, act earlier, to work hard at making sure there's a better outcome. So I'm optimistic on it. Yeah.
You pivoted Google to an AI-first company in 2016, and yet there's still this perception that Google is somehow missing the boat on AI. Are you behind? Are you behind OpenAI?
Look, credit to them for, I think, ChatGPT was a great product with a great product market fit. But when I look at, we've been incorporating AI in our products for a long time. A lot of the underlying technology is built from Google. We are building our next generation of models with Gemini, and I am extraordinarily excited at the innovation coming ahead. If anything, I look ahead, I think we built the company for this moment. I expect it to be a golden age of innovation ahead, and can't wait to bring out the innovations to more people.
So tell us more about Gemini. Give us a glimpse. This is something that's been touted as a magic ingredient for search. What have you seen and how transformative is it going to be?
I think all of us are trying to push the state of the art of where generative AI is. Our goal with Gemini, is to put out a state of the art model, right? That's where we would start with Gemini 1.0, and then add more innovations, truly make them multimodal, bring in features like memory and planning in and so on. But we are focused on getting it out. I view Gemini as a series of models. We are focused on getting Gemini 1.0 out as soon as possible, make sure it's competitive, state of the art, and build from there on.
Google just invested $2 billion in Anthropic. Microsoft, of course, has billions in OpenAI. I recently sat down with Lina Khan, who's the chair of the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, and she said they're hearing concerns that big tech companies are extending their power by investing not just money, but also sharing their clouds with these AI startups. Is that fair? Can innovators succeed and startups succeed without allying themselves with big tech?
Well, it all depends on the details. And, in these deals, when we do with these companies, we are also enabling them because of our cloud technology. And we don't have a controlling stake in any of these companies. So they are independent companies in which we are a technology provider, right? And I think I actually would make the argument the opposite way. If you just look at the last year, look at all the new names we are talking about. To me, it shows that we are in an incredibly dynamic moment again. And yes, I think we have to play a role in enabling the next generation of companies, which is what cloud does. Cloud allows us to take the same technology that Google is built on and actually share it with everyone else. So I think, if anything, it's pro-innovation, and so I think there's a lot of good things about it.
You've been spending some time in Washington lately. There are a couple big trials underway. The US Justice Department, for one, is trying to prove that Google is a monopoly, a search monopoly. Google does dominate 90% of search, which is 90% of how we see and experience the world. It's hard to get information and not use Google. Why should any one company have that much power?
I genuinely think we don't have that position. We are not 90% of users' information needs. I look at my kids' generation on their phone. They have access to the entire world's information at their fingertips. They're getting a lot of their information from social media. They get to go to wherever they want. And so, those are, people don't always go to a general search engine for information. And that plays out in the ads market too. I think we've just talked about, when I look at how much tech is constantly innovating and we have to work hard every year, there's irony in your questions of, aren't you in this position and aren't you behind? So both can be true at the same time. So it's clearly a dynamic moment, and I'm glad we get a chance to make that case. And so I think the facts will speak for themselves.
Some of Google's work with governments around the world has gotten pushback from your own employees. Obviously, we've got the world watching the Israel-Hamas war right now. You've got a contract, Project Nimbus, whereby Google provides cloud and AI services, along with Amazon's AWS, to the Israeli military and government. Can you give us an update on that project?
Well, it's very much in line with what I said earlier. We work with governments around the world. We think it's a responsibility. AI is an important technology. How do you use it to modernize your country's infrastructure and your services? Project Nimbus was a RFP from Israel's Ministry of Finance to modernize their digital infrastructure, and that's the project, and we're proud to be doing Project Nimbus like we do with many governments around the world.
There was, Russia, Ukraine, now we've got Israel and Hamas. How do you think about wielding Google's geopolitical power in a time of conflict?
Look, I view us as a partner to, like-minded governments which share democratic values around the world. I think we can be a critical technology partner. I think we want to participate in important issues that affect these countries, be it skilling and educating their workforce, be it bringing access to more knowledge and information, and that's the role, and be it helping them build out their digital infrastructure, including AI. And I think that's the role. We don't see it in a geopolitical context. We see it in an enabling context. We want to be partners to these companies. And, and there are times information plays an important role in these moments, and we want to get those moments right. And so that's the way I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Google, in so much, not every government is like-minded, right? Google and so much of US tech relies on Taiwan for chips. If tensions escalate between Taiwan and China, how big a threat is that to the US tech industry? And is enough being done to mitigate that risk?
This goes beyond Google. I think in today's world, a lot of the semiconductor manufacturing technology, comes out of the innovation from Taiwan. And, that's a dependency which exists. And so, but this is not a unique Google thing. And, my sense is it'll be that way for a long time to come.
8 years ago, you changed Google's motto. Google changed its motto from "Don't be evil" to "Do the right thing." What does it mean to do the right thing in an AI-powered world?
Hopefully AI will also help us, give inputs to it. But look, I think it has to be grounded in the fundamental values of humanity, human rights and universal human values we all agree on has got to be the foundation for it. And you have to build it up from there. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a lot of debate about it, but that's the foundational thing I would go back to. And as long as AI reflects the essence of what's innately good about humanity, I think we'll be okay.
Everyone likes to ask you what keeps you up at night, and I'm curious, right now, this year, what do you worry about?
Look, I'm excited because it's an extraordinary moment of innovation. When I look at the pace of activity, even at Google, it reminds me of Google's earliest days. So there's a lot of energy I get from that, innovation, because it plays out and will drive benefits in the world. I do worry about many things, making sure we are meeting the moment and moving fast as a company, to making sure, to the election question we talked about, getting it right and a responsibility to do so. So it's a balance of all of that.
All right. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, thank you for spending your time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.